Russell L. Monk, General Counsel of the United States Treasury, wrote to me in a personal letter and said the actual creation of money always involves the extension of credit from a private commercial bank. And the banks create this money by simply writing numbers into your checking account. And we're going to show you, demonstrate to you just exactly how that works. Because once you know, when you go in to get a loan, first thing you do is sit down and talk to the banker, and you explain to him why you need the money and what kind of collateral you got to pay it back and your chances of getting something somewhere to pay it back. And then you agree. So then he says, okay, he shoves over the papers and you sign a promissory note, which becomes the promissory note becomes a liability to the lender, to the borrower, and an asset to the lender. Because now he has an asset because you promised to pay him. Then he takes and writes down in his book system, if you borrow $100, he writes down the $100 in the bookkeeping system, and then he transfers that same $100 over into your checking account. So now you have $100 here that's an asset to him, and he has $100 over here that's a liability to him, because all he loaned you is a promise to pay you. He didn't actually loan you anything, and he just give you recording of how much you agreed to pay him. And that's really all there is to the loan, is you agreed to pay him and he promises to pay you. But you have to pay interest on your loan, and it's court enforceable. If you don't pay it, he can go out and take everything you have away from you, and the court will sanction it, and the cops will come out and do it. But on his side of the liability, his promise to pay is not court enforceable. You can't even get the court to address it. He owes you anything because, after all, they claim he paid you when they put the numbers in the checking account. So now you have $100 in your checking account, and you now have new money created. New money will go into the system as soon as you spend that. So if you spend that $100, and we'll just put this account over here, and I'll say I spent it to Joe Blow, and now my $100 transfer here, I take the $100 out of my checking account. So now this equals out. I've got nothing now in that checking account. I still hold $100 and it's drawing interest. Joe Blow, he has $100. He has no debt and no interest to pay. But now when it comes time for me to pay back my loan, I have to go back and capture the money that's in circulation and get it back in my checking account before I can pay my loan. So in this particular case, say I run into Joe and I talk him into buying something for me for $100. So I get the $100 back in my checking account. But I'm still short. There's not enough money in the system to pay the interest, because this got transferred as a minus out of his account and a plus into my account, and now his account goes away because there's nothing in it, and we're right back with me having the $100 in my account and owe the bank $110 at 10% interest. So the only way that we can get the other money, $10, into circulation is somebody else has to go into the bank and make a loan. They go through the exact same process. Now they end up borrowing $100. And that goes into the exact same thing it did with the banker, an asset and a liability. So now I have to, even though I've got all the money back in circulation that I spent back into my checking account, I still have to go and sell something to the second borrower, and we'll say just for $10. Okay, $10 comes out of his checking account, leaves him with a balance of $90, and $10 goes into my checking account, gives me a balance of $110. Now I can transfer that, I can write a check. That'll go, $100 will go into the banker's loan account, and that will then wipe out the loan account so there's nothing there. And I get my promissory note back, so the note goes away. And now I've taken $110 out of this account, so now that cancels that out, and that money goes away. So now the banker, he gets $10 in profit. So he gets up here, he gets $10 of profit. This is the bank's profit. Okay, so now I've got my loan paid off. I have no debt. I have no money. The next borrower, he has only $90 left in his account. When his loan comes due, he has to pay $110 too. So the same process has to continue on. And he goes in, and the third borrower, he borrows $100. $100 enters into the system. Now, borrower 2, he now has to go out and sell something And we'll assume that he sells the exact same thing I sold to him to borrower 3. But now he has to raise these prices. This is where the price inflation comes from. Because now, in order to get enough money to pay off his $110 loan when he only has $90 left, he has to sell that product for $20. So this guy writes borrower 3, he takes $20 out of his account, that moves up into my account, and that gives, borrower 2 that gives borrower 2 $110 in his account. So now he can write a check for $110 to pay the banker his principal plus the interest. $100 goes into his loan account to pay that off. $10 more goes into the banker's income account. Now this money all gets wiped off, and this guy is left with $80 in his account. So see, now we're back to the same old thing. Now this money's both been destroyed here and there. Because remember, money is created when a loan is issued and a debt incurred. Money is extinguished when that loan is repaid. So now the money supply is only, it's still $100. This borrower 3 has 80 of it and the banker has 20 of it. But even if this borrower captured all the money from the banker, he could only get $20, and he still would not be able to pay his loan of $110 with 10% interest. And of course, you can carry this all the way down if you want to till it gets down to the end. It doesn't make any difference. The same thing happens. Sooner or later, one of these borrowers have to give up his collateral to the bank. And even if he got all this money back, then he would still not have enough to pay his interest. And even though he paid 100% of the interest of the principal, he would still be foreclosed on because he hadn't paid the full amount of the loan, and he would lose his collateral. And that's how our monetary system works. And that's where inflation comes from, because if you keep this going on, and we'll just go one more time. Now the banker makes another loan for $100. Another guy enters the system with $100 in his checking account. So now if this guy's got to sell something to number 4, he's got to sell it for $30. You see, each time they had to sell the same product for more, or they had to have more products sold. And that's where your price inflation actually comes from. So that you have that same scenario again. This guy now, in order to pay his loan, has to sell that product for $30, which now gives him $110. Takes this guy down to $70, because when $30 comes out of his loan account, he ends up with $70. This guy ends enough, he can pay off his loan. The banker ends up with $10 worth of profit. He ends up with $70 left in his checking account. The total money supply is still $100 because this money, when that paid, got written off the books on both the borrower and the lender. The total money supply is still $100, but this guy now has to have $30. And you can see sooner or later this is going to end up in a foreclosure every time, and the banker will get real production that somebody had to work for simply a promise to pay, loaning a promise to pay that he never has to pay. And there's no way you can force him to pay because it's not a court enforceable promise to pay. The law will not recognize that he is not paid, but he will recognize that you have not paid and send the police out to take everything you have. Now we want to go through it a little bit more because we want to see the effects. I want to show you the effects that has on business as we go further. Because now let's take the hamburger stand. And I'm going to start a business, and I borrow $100 and I take the money and I buy a hamburger stand. So all this money goes over to a third party. We'll go through the same process over here. I'll borrow $100. Bank gets a new asset. I get a new liability. I get $100 in my checking account. And we're back where we started. Now I spend this $100 to set up my hamburger stand. I build my hamburger stand. I do whatever to buy the hamburger, the buns, whatever it takes to do it. And this money gets dispersed out through the economy to people who haven't borrowed. My money now is gone, but I have hamburgers to sell. Okay, so now we'll say that none of these guys happen to want my hamburger. So the guy that comes in wants to buy my hamburger, and I say now I can sell that hamburger for, we'll say, $2.